So batiks are a method of fabric that they do wax. They're using wax resist on these to make the prints, and a lot of times they're hand stamped, and it's really a neat technique that they do to go through and make these batiks. But they are a little tighter woven than quilting cotton, so you have a little bit, maybe a little harder time sewing through them. So you can use a finer needle, so a 70-10 needle can kind of go through those a little easier.
Yep, a 70-10 is a little sharper and thinner than the traditional needles you would use for piecing cotton, so it can go through the tightly woven batik fabrics without leaving big holes from a larger needle size, so your finished project won't have, you know, obvious seams and stitches.
And if you find your thread is showing a little too much, you can use a finer weight thread, so a 50 or 60 can help that too. And in the dyeing process, the batiks are already kind of shrinking, so they shouldn't shrink too much, but maybe not as much as cotton. So if you're combining quilting cottons and batiks, you may want to pre-wash those cottons and get those kind of pre-shrunk.
Yeah, and we know there's a lot of controversy on whether people like to pre-wash their fabrics or not pre-wash their fabrics. And there's the same way with batiks too. We know, like you probably are thinking, there's so much dye in these batik fabrics, I need to pre-wash them. But it is up to you. Because of the way they're processed, they shouldn't, you know, lose dye, you know, this more than any other fabrics you're using. But if you do want to pre-wash, we suggest warm water. It washes the wax that they use off, which will just kind of get rid of a little of the stiffness, and then that will give you an idea too of how much the print you're using might lose dye, so that when you're watching in the future or washing in the future, you'll know if you need to put in color catchers or if you just need to be careful with how you're, you know, what other fabrics you're mixing it with.
And in general, we always recommend a color catcher anyway. It's just a good thing to do. It's just gives you that safety net on any bleeding. So
absolutely,
always good to know. And the fun thing about batiks is there isn't a right or wrong side because of the way that they dye it. You might find maybe that one side is a little less vibrant, or maybe even just a little bit blurred on the design. So you can just kind of pick your favorite side, but it is very, very hard to tell on these. We couldn't really tell on these. We couldn't tell. So pick your favorite side and whichever one you like on those.
Something else we love about batiks is because they have that tighter weave, they don't fray as much, so they're really great for applique. So if you are an appliquer and you don't want frayed edges, these batiks are really easy to cut and you won't have that fraying, so you don't need to worry about that in the process.
And then, you know, with the organic kind of nature of the patterns, you can find that you might have a different effect the way you cut them. So if you want to cut them this way, you get more of that, or you know, if you just want a smaller band of the certain color, and you can get like a really lot of different maybe patterns out of just one batik, which is neat.
Which, yeah, I think I'm just going to open some of these so you can see more of how these Banyan Batiks look. But you can see like some of, depending on how small your pieces are, some of them may be this darker orange color, but you may get more of a yellow over here. So if you're going for a really consistent look across the quilt, you may want to fussy cut your pieces across the print, but we love how these just have this organic feel and kind of give movement to the quilt without you having to do any extra work.